BeastNet Podcast, sponsored in part by James Safety Services, OCR Buddy, and supported by the fitness community. Here we discuss all things fitness related, running, rucking, mental health and preparedness, and of course, obstacle course racing. Welcome to the BeastNet.
Hey everybody, it's Pretty Mike here, and on today's podcast I have with me Rebecca Danae. Rebecca, let everyone know really quick kind of who you are.
Hi, so I am a cancer survivor, amputee, adaptive athlete, and an author. I just released my first book, which is called Limitless. It's a memoir of my journey through cancer and amputation, as well as my experiences with obstacle course racing.
Which is amazing. Like we were just talking before we started recording, I have the book, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet. Um, but I mean, it sounds amazing because it's one of those stories that I love a story of, I don't know whether want to say a comeback, but you know what I mean? Someone who's had the odds stacked against them
Yes,
and they went for it anyway.
yes. So one of the parts of my story is that um, I was kind of one of those, some call it a one percenter, some call it, I joke around and say that it's the if it can go wrong, it will go wrong person.
Yeah.
Because I mean, cancer survival and amputation, there's nothing pretty about it. But for my story, it tended to be very, nothing followed the plan. Nothing went the way it was supposed to. I was told I would never walk again after the first surgery that I had. They replaced 16 centimeters of my tibia, replaced it with a cadaver bone and a metal plate, and then said, good luck. We're still filling your body with chemo and you're probably not going to walk again. And I was like, that's just not how I want my life to go. Um, so I decided to change that and I walked 2 months later.
See, and that's amazing. And I love hearing stories like that where doctors just like, yep, you're never going to do this again. And you're like, no, I'm going to.
Yeah, I'm going to try.
Yeah.
That's the first time I heard that. And then the second time I heard that was right before my amputation. And I just kind of rolled my eyes at my surgeon and was like, can we get over this already? If you tell me I'm not going to do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it twice and I'm going to take pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is awesome. You know,
Yeah.
it's, I've always, like I said, I've always loved that. I've seen, like, when I first started in obstacle course racing, nothing is, extreme as your end, but I've had I had a friend who had an ankle injury, went and did him anyway, on crutches, did a beast. Um, I did, I broke all five metatarsals in my left foot.
Oh, wow.
And then what was it, 8 weeks? 8 weeks later and it actually just popped up on my memory. Went to Hawaii and did the Spartan races.
That's awesome.
So I DNF'd the beast because I just couldn't move because I was in a full like air cast. And then, I ended up finishing the super the next day. So I still have the air cast is in my garage with all my medals, the walking stick that I used because it's like that was almost more memorable than the medal was just, the
Right.
fact that I went for it. But I mean, like I said, not as, not to the same level as you, but it's still that same thing of like, okay, you can't, but is it possible?
Right,
You know,
right.
you
I've
know, it's
said it before because after my amputation, um, there were so many things I wanted to do, but it was one of those, am I gonna be able to do a 5K Spartan race, 8 or so months after amputation? And everyone kept asking me that, and I said, "You know what? I would rather try and have to DNF the race than
mhm.
to sit on the sidelines and question for the rest of my life, could I have made it? Could I have at least attempted it?" And so that's been the motto for life is just attempt to do the thing.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing is, there's so many people that are like, what if I fail? And there, it's like, but what if you don't?
Mhm.
If you don't get off the couch and you don't go for it, you've already failed.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just been the way I've always thought of it. And I don't know if that's, atypical or whatever, but that's just my brain has always been like, well, if I don't try, I've already failed. So,
So I may as well just try, and if I
yeah,
fail, at least I attempted it.
yeah, at least I went for it, and a lot of times too, if you go for it and you do fail, like for me, I failed two Ironmans, two half irons. And then finally this year I finished one, but I want to do more than what I did. I want to do it better, but I finally finished one and everyone's like, oh, you failed twice. Why are you going for a third time? Because I learned something from the first two times.
Yes.
I know what mistakes I made. and I know not to make them this next time. So, and then on this last one, I finished, but I didn't finish as fast as I wanted to. And I'm like, okay, I know where my mistake was and I know how to fix it. And that's just it. You're never going to do this again. Okay, well, I'm going to try doing it. And then when I don't, if I don't, well, then I know what caused me not to, and I know what to do to fix it.
Right, and a lot of these endurance events like the Ironmans and Spartans and even just things like long distance hiking, a lot of times you can't, to me at least, it's hard to know how to prepare for it until you actually do it. So you can prepare all day long for your first attempt, but until you're on a course, it's just you're not going to know exactly what to do for it.
No, you're not. And that's kind of one thing with the Iron Man where I thought I was like the first one. I'm like, yeah, I've got this. But I didn't train hard enough on the bike.
Mhm.
And that's where I lost. That's where I DNF'd. On the second one, I actually crashed the bike.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, okay, well, don't do that again. And it was because of my own, it sounds bad, but my own cheapness. I didn't have the bike fixed, like tuned up right before the race, and I ended up jumping gears
Mhm.
when I was shifting going up a hill. And I mean, I say crashed, literally I fell over, but I fell over hard enough because I couldn't get my feet out that I like dislocated my shoulder.
Oh,
But
geez.
then the third time I'm like, okay, bike was in the shop a week beforehand. You know, I trained on my bike repeatedly. I got a trainer in the house so that, when I finished the bike, I had plenty of time.
Mhm.
So it's like, and that's kind of that thing. And I mean, it's an interesting analogy, but for like you, it's the same thing. Like, hey, you're never going to do this again. Well, I'm going to try doing it. And then,
Yep.
oh, it didn't work because of this. Maybe, something didn't fit right, or something just wasn't going right. Maybe the muscles weren't there yet. And you're like, okay, I know what muscles I need to do. But most people forget Iron Man, Spartan, all of these, they become more mental than physical in
Oh
most
my
ways.
goodness, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember my first beast, was actually my second Spartan race ever because I did the Jacksonville 5K and then just
Mhm.
decided, "Oh, I think I'm gonna do a trifecta." And everyone said, "Oh, you're crazy. Why are you gonna jump into that?" And I was like, "Well, I already wasn't supposed to walk. I mean, the sky's the limit at this point."
Yeah.
Um, and I remember I would go up and down this bike trail that we had in our town, and I would slowly work up the miles, but at the same time, I was just thinking, I have to train my mind or else this isn't going to work no matter how many miles I put in. If I can't endure this thing mentally, there's just no way I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did because 10 miles into the beast, trudging through mud in Central Florida, that sucked.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've been there. I did the Beast last December
Okay.
with More Heart Than Scars with Erica. And yeah, it was like in Central Florida. I'm like, oh yeah, I could see how this could be trudging through that mud and everything else. I'm like, yeah, this is horrible.
Oh yeah, I got to the point where I was laughing hysterically because there was so much mud and I was like, if I don't start laughing at this, I'm going to start sobbing
Yeah.
because it was so much mud.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one thing a lot of people don't think about. It is that endurance. It's like the first time I did, uh, and a lot of it too is who you have with you.
Mhm.
If you have the right group, I know for the first time I did a beast, which honestly was my first Spartan was a beast because I don't do research. Um, and I didn't realize what I signed up for. But and this was back in like 2015 before Spartan understood how to measure. So
Oh
it
boy.
was a beast, but it was the Montana beast, and I think it ended up being almost 22 miles.
Oh
Oh, it
my,
was it was brutal. But I was like halfway through, I'm like, this is stupid. I'm done. I don't even want to do this anymore. This is just meh.
why did
And
I
I
pay to do this?
yeah, why did I pay to do this? And I ended up there was a group near me called Beast OCR, and they had just started. Um, and I saw someone's shirt, and I'm like, oh, hey, I think I'm part of that Facebook group. And I started talking to the guy, and the next thing I know, we're just trudging along together, and we finished the race. And later on, he's like, I was ready to quit until I started talking to you, and I'm like, same thing,
Mhm.
and we just happened to meet at the same time, meet at the right time, and like talk to each other through. And that's when I realized really quickly, like, if you have the right people with you, you can do this.
Mhm. I don't know that I could have made it through my first beast without the team that I had. It was just some people that I found on Facebook, and then when we got on the course, we kind of adopted a few more, and without them, without having someone to just keep me moving, that course was brutal. I don't know that
Yeah.
I would have been able to talk myself through that alone.
There's been a few. I've had a few. I think, listeners have known right before my 40th birthday, I always told everyone I was going to do a marathon before my 40th birthday. Well, through injuries and other things and being me, I got up to like 310 pounds. And like 6 days before my 40th birthday, I'm like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I did the Seattle Marathon
Nice.
at 310 pounds. Boggs, who is, the producer of BeastNet, we've known each other since preschool. We've been friends forever. He's basically more my brother than my actual brothers. He's like, I'm going with you. And I'm like, you're more out of shape than I am. And he's like, but if you're gonna do it, you're gonna need someone right there with you to help you. And he just went with me. I had another friend, and it was about 13 miles in. The first friend, she had been sick, she didn't feel good, so she dropped out. And we're like, okay, thank you for coming this far with me. About mile 23, I think 22 or 23, Dawn actually had started having back spasms.
Oh no.
And he's just like, I can't. And I'm like, it's that hard thing in your brain. I'm like, you got me this far, but if I stop and try and help you, I'm not going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking at me going, you just need to go. And that last 3 miles was when it really clicked in my brain how much it is having those people with you, that they got me that 23, 22, 23 miles. But that last 3 miles, I mean, I'll be honest, it's the first time I ever cried on a course because I'm just like broken. Because at 310 pounds, it took me 9 hours to do a
Mm-hmm.
marathon, but I did it.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
awesome.
suggest anybody else do it, but not it that way. But you know, but it was one of those things. I mean, it's just like I said, if you have that right people, you feel like you can do anything. It makes you invincible.
Mhm. That's what More Hearts Than Scars did for me on my first race back after amputation.
Yeah.
I'm wearing the shirt actually.
Yeah, I've got the. It's what's funny is so the other day I was doing a thing, they thought it was actually a flag behind me. It's actually a green screen, and it's a picture. So,
Mm.
but
You had me fooled.
yeah, it's a green. He figured it out because my cup. I was drinking out of this cup,
Mhm.
and
I
then
see
yeah,
now.
because it's green, you could see it. And he's like, "What the?" And I'm like, "It's a green screen." So
That is awesome. Yeah, I told them that I wanted to do this race. My prosthetic wasn't fitting, the best it should have, but I was like, we just got to jump out there and do it. Is it really ever going to fit perfectly? We're just going to have to do it. And leading up to that race, the drive, walking through the festival area, I was like, what have I gotten myself into? I'm seeing these, elite level
yeah,
athletes. I've barely walked a 5K, since my amputation. And I'm just thinking, what am I doing with myself? This is ridiculous. Why did I do this? And then I walked up to the More Heart Than Scars tent and just went, I'm going to finish this race
yeah,
because I knew no matter what happened, they weren't letting me DNF it if they had to carry me. Um, but even still, I just knew these are the people that are going to get me through this, no matter what it takes to get through it. And it was the most incredible experience I've had at a
yeah.
race.
And that's what's amazing with like more. I've done a couple races now with them. I'd pretty much after 2020, I dropped down 180 pounds. I was doing great weight wise. I ran a couple competitive races, and I lost my love. I'm like, it's no fun. It's like without that group setting with me, it just
Mhm.
wasn't fun. A lot of the group that I did it with stopped doing it over COVID. I'm just like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. So it really kind of stopped. And that's kind of why I started doing triathlons. And then it was Dawn when he really started getting in with More Heart Than Scars. And then I'm like, okay, I'll do a race. I moved down to Houston, away from Seattle, moved down to Houston, and I'm like, I'll go do the Dallas race with him. And the second I did that race with them, with Marla and all that, I'm like, okay, this is why I do this. This
Mhm.
is the whole reason to help people, And then I did, like I said, Florida with Erica, which was amazing. And literally, that's one of those ones I always make jokes with my friends. Hey, if we can't do this, I'll carry you. There are literally parts that I was carrying Erica through it. So I mean, we really will pick you up on our back and carry you if that's what we have to do,
The most
but we will
surreal
get you through.
Yeah, the most surreal moment for me was that we had hit the inverted wall, which is not my best friend. The inverted wall and I are frenemies. And I'm kind of looking at it because I'm like, I don't have an ankle on one side, so I'm trying to
Yeah.
strategize how am I supposed to get myself over this. And one of the ladies, as she sees me, kind of start to freak out a little bit, she taps me on the shoulder and she goes, "Hey," gets down on her hands and knees and says, "Climb on my back and climb over." And I just stood there for a second because it was like, you're asking me to stand on your back and climb over this obstacle. And she's like, "Yes, do it. No hesitation."
Hmm.
Um, and then I was so tired. It was towards the end of the race. We hit the dunk wall and the slip wall. And I'd been over the slip wall before, never with a prosthetic, and kind of started thinking like, "Oh, I can't feel the grip. I just started doubting myself." And I got a little bit up the wall and said, "Yeah, I don't think I shouldn't do this." And immediately I was surrounded by like 5 people. They're like, "Nope, you're gonna do it." And I was like, "I don't know how you guys expect me to do this, but okay." And as we're going up the wall, they're literally planting their feet beneath mine to give me a foothold and holding me up by the back. And then when I got to the top, they pulled me over. And it was just so incredible to be surrounded by a team that's like so willing to do anything they can to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, and it is amazing. I mean, doing stuff with the team and just seeing it's once the team goes out there with an athlete, it's about that athlete.
Mhm.
Like whatever obstacle that athlete's like, I'm gonna do this one. They're like, cool, let's do it. And they'll find a way safely to get them through it. And that was kind of cool because I got to see him, with Marla in the wheelchair at Dallas, and then, Erica with her wheelchair in uh, Florida. And then we did Marla again for World's Toughest, which was insane. We did 30 miles on that one. But, to see that kind of, those those things and just how much the team is like, let's go. We're gonna get you through this. We're gonna do it.
You're
Picking up the chair in with her in it fully and walking through some of the stuff, and that's what it's about.
mhm. It's absolutely incredible, and the fact that they are willing to do that kind of thing and make something that's difficult. It's difficult for, an able-bodied person to do that and make it more difficult on themselves to help those of us who are not fully able-bodied to
Yeah,
be able to do these things that we're told we were never gonna do again. Um, that's just a huge undertaking for a
yeah,
whole team or for a person.
it is, and it's amazing. I mean, Joey and Zach and all them do an amazing job.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, I will be racing with them hopefully again this December. Um,
Ooh,
I would
which
love
one?
to try to do the trifecta again, but we'll see how that goes.
Which one you did? Central Florida.
Mhm.
Nice. I haven't decided. Right now, I'm only supposed to do Dallas and World's Toughest with the team, and I haven't decided if I'm doing any of the other ones because I want to train for the Ironman, and my biggest worry is that I'm going to hurt myself before the Ironman.
Oh, yeah, the Spartan course is where it'll happen if it's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
yeah, it will. Yeah, because what's funny is the second Ironman that I DNF'd. What some people know and some don't. I did the Spartan race the day before
Oh my goodness.
because it was Boggs. It was the first time we had Nicole up in Seattle,
Mhm.
and there wasn't anyone to volunteer with him. And he's like, "I need your help," and I'm like, "I'm supposed to do an Ironman the next day."
Yeah,
And he's like, I need your help. I'm like, all right, I'll be there.
yeah.
So I had to like literally, I took my bike with me because on the way back, I had to stop and drop my bike off at the Ironman in the transition. So
I
yeah,
admire that big time.
yeah, it was like, yeah. And then I ended up crashing anyway, but whatever. It
At
happens.
least you tried, right?
Yeah, I did. And like I said, I learned. So,
Mhm.
um, which is amazing. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, your story is amazing to me to see because you've seen the opposite. You see it all the time, unfortunately, where people don't have a support system or anything around them. They get injured, they have an amputation, they have something like that, um, and then they just kind of, you know, I don't know how bad it is, but let the darkness take them, whatever, because they can't deal with it because they don't have like I said, that support system or that mindset. And it's amazing to see someone who was able to like say, hey, it's not the end of your life. It's a change.
During when I got diagnosed with cancer, it was actually somewhat of the opposite, where I didn't really have that big of a support system. It was my mom and my best friend, and then we made a few friends from the hospital that helped us get through that situation. But in terms of having like what everyone would want to have, big family or big community that's there for you. It was pretty much just really just the two of us. And then we had some support. Um, and that was it. You don't realize it at the time how hard it is because, you're going through it. It's going to be hard no matter what.
Yeah.
Looking back on it and going, wow, we really tried to do that by ourselves. And then, so cancer was in 2019. My amputation was in 2022, 2022, 2023. And for that, I had more heart than scars. I had my church family. I was surrounded by so many people, and it made the world of difference to try to get through something like that, having people around.
Oh, I bet. I bet. And I mean, that's one thing, like, and that's the, and if any of my families listen to this, sorry, but your chosen family sometimes is so amazing because it's
Yeah.
one of those things I've told most people all my life, and I know it sounds horrible to say this. I was kind of a sickly child. Um, I flat out told people for years, I'm like, if I ever got sick, nobody's gonna know till it's too late. Like the doctors might know, my wife would know, that would be it.
Hmm.
Because I spent most of my childhood being babied because it's like, oh, and I'm like, stop looking at me like that. You know,
Hmm.
stop acting like there's nothing, just mm. And I'm sure you know what I mean when people all of a sudden see you and they're like, oh, and they try and like pamper you and do everything else. It's like I could still do this myself,
Yes.
you know?
That was a big thing, especially after amputation, was I had to tell people, you just have to let me try.
Yeah.
Because if you never let me try, I'll never figure it out on my own. And then I'm stuck here, needing help for everything.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And I was one of those ones. I was very independent. A lot of it came down to too, I'm the youngest of six. So, it's like everyone's always like, you got away with everything. And I'm like, yeah, and there's nobody knew I was there. Like, but then all of a sudden, whenever I get sick, because I had really bad asthma and I couldn't breathe. If I'd have an asthma attack, I'll get really bad. Then all of a sudden, like all the focus was on me. So it was like half the time if I'm having an asthma attack, I'm like, just fucking ignore it. It'll go away. You
Yeah,
know,
it'll be fine.
don't say anything. They're gonna freaking bug me. That was kind of that thing that, gets really weird when you get sick. And I've always told people, like, I don't think anyone would know. I think a few people might know in my like inner circle, but as I've gotten older and developed those relationships, like you're talking about, like more heart than scars, stuff like that, where I know they would help me how I wanted to be helped.
Mhm.
Like if I need help and I said, hey, I need help with this, they're gonna be there, but they're not gonna hover over me like a helicopter, being like, what do you need? You know,
Right.
and that's that difference between like real family and your chosen family. A lot of time that chosen family is like, hey, if you need me, here I am.
Hmm.
you know but if you
And it
don't,
build that trust so that you actually trust them to say, I need this help,
yeah,
because I can be a bit of a little miss independent. Um, and if I don't trust the person around me, I'm gonna try to tough it out by
yep,
myself before I ask for help, which I admit is totally to my detriment most of the time. But
it is. I have that same issue. I have that same, well, I'll just tough it out, and then all of a sudden it's like, I need help and I really should have asked like 6 months ago, but
honestly,
my bad.
we're here now though, and we're
Yeah,
asking for help now.
yeah. So I think it's just that weird thing that some people just have that, for me, it's funny because people are surprised because coming from such a big family, they're like, I'm surprised you're not used to just, like, I just got to that point when I was younger that I was babied by everyone because I was the youngest. And after a while, I'm just like, leave me alone.
Mhm. See, I'm an only child, so I'm not used to the, younger child. But in the same sense, it's like I was the one that got all the attention. I was the one that, I'm the only
Yeah,
one there. So, um, but like you said, the chosen family, it's it's incredible, and people who don't have that maybe don't understand what it's like to have that person that's like, this is a brother. No, he's not related to me, but he is a brother, or
yeah.
she is a sister, whatever the case is. Um, and it's really incredible. I never thought it would be as incredible as it is until I found those people.
It is, and it's like once you find them, and it's like, and usually it's one of those things that it just surprises me that they're not people like where like them for a long time, and then suddenly it happens. It's like you meet them, and it's like you're my people.
That happened with my brother. We had been talking for a very short amount of time, and we just decided, hey, you're my best friend. Nope, that doesn't quite work. You're my brother.
Mhm.
And he actually shaped it was crazy of, there's so many influences that go in, especially after amputation, of how you're going to view yourself and how other people are going to view you, and realizing that you have no control over how everyone else views you.
Yeah.
And it was a week after he had flown from Oregon to spend a week with me to help, cheer me up and keep me going and stuff like that. And we were sitting on the couch together and we were just kind of chit chatting. Usually he calls me sis, I
Mhm.
call him bro. And I asked him a question and he responded, instead of saying sis, he said she wolf. And I kind of like, what are you talking about? That's very new.
Yeah.
Um, and at the time, I was still trying to figure out how I viewed myself. I'm stuck on the couch, I'm missing a limb. I can't really do anything for myself. And he said, "Well, your amputation was your choice. You told them to cut your leg off because it wasn't serving you any purpose." And I said, "Yeah. What's your point?" And he said, "Well, wolves have been known to get caught in traps and they will wrench their own leg off because they understand that they cannot continue to live without some kind of drastic measure."
Yeah.
And and immediately that started shaping everything, because instead of seeing myself as, a victim or someone who was the product of circumstances of life, I was like, "You know what? No, I chose this to better myself, to better my life, and I'm not going to let anyone view me, or at least the control I have. I'm not going to view myself. Hopefully not let anyone else view me as a victim or as someone to be pitied."
Yeah. Which is amazing. I mean, that's a great analogy. I never really even thought of it that way. But yeah, that's a great analogy that, like you said, you chose because it wasn't doing you any good. And it is that's been known quite often for especially wolves that something's wrong with a limb, they just get rid of it and still power on as an amazing, ferocious beast.
Mhm.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool, because when my leg, um, I had gone on for 3.5 years with the metal and the cadaver bone. I actually ended up running a Spartan Super, and the bone was breaking, and I didn't realize it. So I just did the whole race. I was like, it's a little bit painful, but I was used to chronic pain.
Yeah.
So I just kind of went, no, I'm going to finish the race. And a couple of months later, I woke up and my leg just bent out in the middle. And I was like, oh, that's not how legs are supposed to move.
Yeah.
Broke straight through the bone and the metal.
Yeah.
So that was not fun. But when they suggested doing a surgery that, they're talking all of these ifs and maybes. And so I looked at my surgeon and I said, "So when is my next Spartan race? I just need you to be clear with me on that." And he said, "Oh, you're not going to do that again. You're not going to walk again." And I said, "Yeah, that's not going to work. You
Yeah.
got to
It's not
do
gonna work for me.
I I need to race again." So we went back and forth. He didn't really want to give the amputation idea, but I was like, "I need you to understand the importance of this decision." So I let him go on until he was, he said, "You're not going to like this decision." And I went, "Try me." And then when he said it, I said, "Yeah, that sounds a whole lot better than you messing up my leg for, years and years and years until we inevitably amputate anyways."
Yeah. And that's one of those things. I mean, it's that's I see that so often where they're like, okay, well, we don't want to take the leg, we want to do this and we want to do that, and they keep trying all these things, and then 10 years later, like, yeah, we got to take the leg.
Mhm.
So I've gone through all this pain, all this everything, testing to try and make it work, and you're gonna have to take it anyway. Yeah, might as well just do it in the beginning.
Yeah. I actually had a few people. There was one amputee I talked to who tried to get me to try the leg saving measures. And I was like, "But it's not going to work. They're telling me it's not going to work. I don't want to lose years of my life to this.
Yeah,
Um, I'm sorry. It's not that important to me. Give me one that I can put sparkles on and make it cool."
yeah, and that's it. I mean, there's only the one thing that we like spend that we can never get back, and we don't know how much we have of it is time.
Hmm.
So if they take, you lose 5 years trying to do this leg saving when they're looking at you going, chances are this isn't going to work.
Right.
It's like,
Which they
whoa.
never want to admit, but you can read between the lines and see this doesn't sound like it's going to work.
No. I mean, that'd be my kind of thing. What are my percentages on this?
Hmm.
If you're not going to give me better than like a 50-50, we got problems.
Right.
You
And
know,
even then, I'm like 50-50 for the
yeah.
years.
It's like,
Just not
and
gonna.
then how well is it going to work?
Right.
Mm,
Am I going to be able to walk around, back
yeah.
my fridge and back and I'm done for the day, or am I gonna be able to run these races again?
Yeah. And I mean, that's it. I mean, with the amputation, a lot of people are like, oh, it's a horrible thing, but you get back the freedom that you more than likely would not have gotten if with the life-saving measures.
Right.
Because, or not life-saving, but leg saving, where they save the leg, but then it's like, well, we saved it, but it only has about, you know, 30% of the usage that a normal one would.
Right. Yeah, and the technology for prosthetics is absolutely incredible. Before
Yeah.
I even went through with the amputation, I talked to who became my prosthetist. And, she's asking me, "What do you want to do with your life? What kind of job do you have? What are your hobbies?" And I was like, "Okay, here we go." Because I had never gotten a good response from any kind of medical professional from this. I said, "I do Spartan races. I like endurance events. I like hiking." And she kind of looked, and you could tell she was thinking of all these things in her head.
Hmm.
She said, "I'll run a Spartan race with you because we're going to get you back to it." And, just I have a foot that most of the time I can't even tell I have a prosthetic because it just works so well.
Yeah. And that's it. They're getting to a point that it works. It's not like the old days where you've got a peg leg on the, as a pirate, but
Right.
and I think that's what most people think. They immediately think, oh, it's going to be like, a pirate with a peg leg. And you're like, no, it's, you can't even tell most of the time.
Mhm.
I have a comedian friend, back in Seattle that had to, because of diabetic reasons, had to have his amputated. And if he's wearing jeans or pants, you have no idea.
Right. I mean, they can shape it, they can make it look like skin if you want to wear shorts. The amount of things that they can do with prosthetics is incredible. So,
Yeah.
I'm always a huge advocate. Like, I know that most or a lot of people, amputation is not exactly the best thing they want to hear.
No.
But just to advocate that it's not this life-ending measure anymore. It's really, in a lot of cases, can give you more quality of life back.
And I think that's what a lot of people don't think about. I mean, it's one of those things you want quality of life. And people get too so stuck on the aesthetics of it of, oh, but it's not my real leg. But your real leg doesn't work.
Exactly. It's
It's like,
a
oh,
harsh thing to hear, but it's true.
yeah, it's like your real leg doesn't work. It's like with a car. If your tire, isn't working, you go get a new one.
Mhm.
And it's the same thing. And I know people are like, oh, but a tire isn't like, it really is. It's what helps move you around. If it's not working and there's a way to replace it in a way that you can function and probably function better than you did with the actual leg, why not?
Mhm. It's not an easy option, but,
No.
I will tell anyone I have 0 regrets about taking an amputation over, all of these surgeries, and if anyone questions me on it, I can go, "Well, I still ran a Spartan race," I think it was 10 months. Still did a Spartan race 10 months after an amputation. So if I can still do the things that I was doing before, it's fine.
It is. And it is. It's one of those things because doctors are very quick. And I don't know what it is. They're very quick to say, you're never going to do this again.
So quick.
And that was one thing, like, like I said, when I did the race, the marathon, like 310 pounds and all that, what put me at that point was I broke my left foot. Like I said, I broke all five metatarsals. My toes touched my heel. So it
Whew.
was not a good day. Doctors told me, you'll never run again. You're never going to get a push off with that left foot. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I believed him.
Mhm.
Really didn't try running, just kind of hiked a little bit. I was still doing Spartan races, but I got up to like 310 pounds because I was doing nothing between the races.
Mhm.
And then finally, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I started trying to run again, and finally, like it hurt. Like the breaking the scar tissue, everything else, it hurt. But I got it working again, and I ended up doing a marathon in 4 hours and 39 minutes.
Yeah. I
And
don't
dropped to 180 pounds.
I don't think they realize just how much power they hold
Yeah.
over a patient's mindset, where if they say, "You're never gonna do this," a lot of them are gonna say, "Okay, I'm never gonna do that again." And then you've got some that are like, "I just don't believe you on that."
Yeah.
And it's
Eh,
it's just I wish there was a better way to communicate those things because you don't wanna give false hope, but you don't wanna take away the hope completely.
no. And that was my thing. It was just like I took the wrong mindset. Plus, I didn't have like, because it was a work injury, I didn't get like the care that I probably should have. I didn't get like, they didn't, no physical therapy, nothing. It was just pretty much like your bones are healed, you're screwed, you're never gonna run again, have a nice life,
Yeah.
you know. And then it was just kind of, I think if I had the right physical therapist and stuff like that, they probably would have been able to show me how to do it again, and do everything. But I believed them, you know, and now I know better than to believe them. And there's great stories like yours where they're like, "Yeah, you're never gonna walk again." I just did a Spartan race.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
that's actually how I got into Spartan races because when I survived cancer, I was like, I need to get myself healthy. I need to do everything I can to prevent this kind of thing from happening again. But the idea of going to a gym, I was not into it. It was not thrilling to me. Um, Oddly enough, the idea of going to a kickboxing gym was just fine. So I decided
hmm,
to join kickboxing and start doing group classes. And one of my coaches, I walk in, I'm in gym shorts, and he looks at the scar that goes from my knee to my ankle and just kind of goes, okay. And we do the class and we're cooling off after. And he goes, hey, just, for the elephant in the room, can I ask about what all of that is? So, I told him the whole thing with cancer and you're never going to walk again and blah, 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 blah. And he looks at me and he goes, so if you can do this, you can do a Spartan race. And I said, oh, what's a Spartan race? You could tell as a Spartan
hmm,
racer, he was like, this is my moment. So he tells me about this, sandbag carries and rope climbs and climbing over walls and rolling through the mud. And I looked at that man and I said, that sounds psychopathic. And I'm not going to do that. And he went, yeah, you're right. You probably wouldn't do it anyways. And that's when it started clicking in my brain. And I went, did you just tell me I wouldn't?
yeah,
Because now I have to. So I went home from class and I looked it up and I'm looking at these pictures of a Spartan race thinking, I don't know what I'm going to get myself into, but now I have to prove a point. Came
hmm,
back to class, and before I could even tell him, okay, fine, I'm going to do a race, he just started giggling. And I was like, I don't
dang
know.
it. Yeah.
I can do it now.
Yeah, see, I used to get people all the time because I was part of the street team for years, the
Mhm.
Spartan street team, and we go to different events and stuff like that. And I would get people all the time like, "Oh yeah, I can never do that," or you get them like, "Okay, maybe I could do it, but dang, it's so expensive." I'm like, "Here's a free race. What's excuse number two?"
Mhm.
And they're like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, "Here's a free race. Pay for the insurance. It's all you have to pay. It's like $15." They're like, "Oh," and I got a lot of friends doing it that way, where it's just like, "Hey, I get more free races than I can use, so here you
Yeah.
go." Come join us. Let's come play. And
Mhm.
that's, I have a lot of friends that still do it. I just did a Ragnar, and one of the girls that went with us, she's like, I remember, she's like, the first time I ever did a Spartan race, you handed me a free race, at one of the events that they were doing, and got me to do it. And now I think she's lost like 120 pounds and just
Wow.
doing amazing. And it's like, wow. So, and that you get that like, oh wow, I kind of inspired that. That's kind of neat. But
Yeah.
yeah. And
So
that's one thing for you is I think you were going to inspire a lot of people
I
with
really
everything you've done. So, and that's the one thing we haven't talked about is this.
let's talk about it.
Let's talk about this.
I'm
Like I said,
very
I've got it for those that can't see who are listening on, and not, watching on YouTube. This is the book, Limitless. Like, dang it, where's the camera? There it is.
there you go.
Limitless. So, which like I said, I have it, but I haven't had a chance to sit down and read it yet. So, give us a quick synopsis of what is this?
So this is the entirety of my story up until this year, actually. So it starts in 2019. I was 18 years old, got diagnosed with stage 3 bone cancer, went through treatment, had sepsis a couple times, got told I would never walk again, had this surgery. And then it goes into recovering from that, eventually starting to Spartan race and how that became a part of my recovery. Um, and then how my life got turned completely upside down with the decision to amputate. Um, and then getting back to Spartan racing as an adaptive athlete.
Which is awesome. Like I said, it's just amazing to go through all that and to have the mental, like, I don't know the right word, my brain isn't catching it. Just be able to make that decision. Say, hey, this is gonna be what's best for me. You do it, and then you come right back and do Spartan races again, which is just awesome. I'm hoping I get a race with you someday.
I'm
So
really hoping that would be awesome.
yeah, I've got to get to more. I'm actually right now this pretty much like this week. I've let myself kind of. I did the Ironman in April and then just kind of quit doing anything. I'm just like I need a break.
Mhm.
But now I'm like this week pretty much supposed to be my week when I start doing everything again and getting back into shape. I'm hoping I got to get some more races. Like I said, maybe I will have to figure out how to get down to Florida in December. I did it last year because it was literally the race was on my birthday.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I flew down Friday night. My plane was, yeah, it was a total nightmare. I didn't get to the hotel and woke up Boggs at like 1 in the morning, Saturday morning. Like basically went in there, just climbed into bed next to him, and I'm like, whatever. And took like went to sleep for like 2 or 3 hours, and then got up and went and did the beast, and then ended up flying home the next morning. So
Wow.
I was just there like overnight because my wife was like, literally, you're leaving on your birthday to go do a race. I'm like, yeah,
Why not?
why not? It's on my birthday. I've got to do it.
Right. I would
So,
love to start being able to do more races if I could, figure out good ways to travel and work on that side. Because being an adaptive athlete is just one of the coolest things, meeting other adaptive athletes,
mhm.
um, and not even just Spartan races, but other things like I've mentioned hiking a couple of times because I think that's super cool. It's super cool to be able to do.
Yeah.
Um, I would just love to start exploring that, and who knows, maybe there will be more books with more cool adaptive athlete things in them.
Which, like I said, is amazing because it gives people that hope. Because I
Mhm.
think, you have too many doctors, like you said, that say, "Oh, you're done. You're never gonna walk in. You're done. It's over.
Your life is over.
Your life is over." Because that's what most people hear. The second you say you're never gonna walk again, my life's over.
Yep.
I'm done.
Because if
I
you
mean,
think of the amount of things that walking, I mean, it's intuitive when you have both legs.
hmm
I realized when I had my amputation just how difficult life was when you can't walk, when you're either on crutches or in a wheelchair, which I was way too stubborn and I refused to use a wheelchair because I was like, I'm going to tough it out. This is an obstacle and I'm going to overcome it. So I was on crutches or a knee scooter and just getting dressed in the morning, trying to fix myself food, the amount of things that are so difficult when you can't just walk into the kitchen and make a bowl of cereal. And people, it's hard. I couldn't imagine it until I was in it. So for people that haven't gone through something like that, it's hard to fathom.
it is. It's even like with breaking my foot, like you said, with the crutches. I mean, just zipping up your pants,
Mhm.
where you're trying to lean on a crutch and do everything, and it's just like pulling up your pants is a freaking nightmare, and you just don't think of those weird things that are just gonna be
They're intuitive.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah. When I broke my foot, it always cracked me up because I did it at work, and it was dumb. Um, I'm a safety guy now, and it's one of those things. It's like as a safety guy, I'm like that was the stupidest thing that broke my foot. Um, I have a degree in OSHA and everything, but
Mhm.
my office was on the second floor, and we didn't have a elevator. We had not. It was stairs. That was it.
Oh
And my
no.
boss is like, we can move you down to the second floor. And I'm like, it's a smaller office. And I did this because I'm an idiot. So don't bother. I'm
Mhm.
just basically like, we looked at one of the warehouse guys. I'm like, make sure that banister is sturdy. And he's like, why? And I'm like, just make sure it's sturdy when I come back. And I literally would hand him my crutches and I went up just used the banister and went up. And they're like, you're nuts. Why? And I'm like, I did this to myself.
Mhm.
This is my fault. So I'm not going to make you all do a bunch of stuff to make it easier for me.
Yeah. I actually got salty at my mom because she immediately started trying to rearrange the kitchen, and I think a lot of it was Spartan racing. I became this fiercely independent, like, we don't change hard things, we overcome hard things.
Yeah.
Eventually, I let her rearrange the kitchen because I was like, there's no way to get the food from the fridge to the microwave, so we need to put those in the same place.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like just wanting to learn and overcome and then being put in a position where it's like, no, you kind of have to let things be rearranged. But like I mentioned earlier with other things, like let me try to do it. Let me
Mhm.
try to figure it out. And eventually we found ways to get around.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, you figure out ways. And I mean, it's It's just because for you, I mean, like for me, when I broke my foot, and I know I keep using it, but it's like only thing I can like where my brain just kind of fits kind of in the same way. It was a temporary thing. After 8 weeks, I was in a walking boot, and then whatever, so I could walk again. I had a boot. For you, this is this is your life from now
Mhm.
on, and you have to find ways to overcome it. And it's not just like for me where I had to overcome it for 8 weeks.
Right.
This is, finding new ways to do things that work. And it's that independence at first, but then after a while, like, okay, now I'm just being stubborn.
Yep.
How,
Very.
what can I do to make my life easier
Mhm.
so that I can do other things?
My biggest tip is a little rolling stool, like, I guess, like tattoo artists use,
Hmm.
um, because I have a house that has no carpet, it's all, hard floors, so anytime I don't wanna put on my leg, like, it's kind of a hassle to put on your leg to go get a bottle of water and go back, sit on the couch, I can just hop on this little chair, roll around, roll back, or in times like right now, I'm having a hard time wearing my legs, so it's kind of one of those things I should stay off of it, and I'm learning that when you have an amputated limb, you kind of have to listen to those things. You can't just ignore it and tough it out. That was a hard lesson. Um, but just finding ways to adapt where it's like, I don't feel super bad. But I still kept a little bit of stubbornness, so it's okay.
I mean, it happens. Well, I mean, because you got to figure it's kind of one of those things like getting it. It's like shoes.
Mhm.
If you get your shoes, sometimes you get some spots that you get some hot spots because they're rubbing in the wrong spot or whatever. And that's kind of the one thing because I've known a couple other people that were amputees that, getting used to trying to find the way that it fits right so you don't get hot spots. Because then if you get hot spots, well, you can't wear it because you have to let the hot spot,
Yeah.
heal up and all that. And then there's a lot of other things that go with it, because really you're walking on the injury.
Mhm.
You're putting all your weight on scar tissue.
Yep.
And scar tissue does weird things sometimes. It can be very painful. And that's kind of one of those. And I don't think people realize that. They're like, oh, it just heals and it's like your foot. No,
Ooh.
it's not gonna callus like your foot all of a sudden does. You're on scar tissue.
Yeah, and it's a continual thing. If you don't take care of it exactly the way it needs to be taken care of, it's not going to work. And that's why it's like, you know, it's not a thing anymore where I can go, "Oh, I'm just gonna, run a beast in a couple of months or run a
Yeah,
whole trifecta weekend in a couple of months." It's like, I have to plan and make sure, it's no longer just a mental toughness, like I can stick it out through the pain. It's
yeah,
make sure that it is going to be safe for me to stick it out because, it would really suck to do these races and be like, "Heck yeah, we did it," and then not be able to walk for 3 months.
yeah. And that's just it. And that's what a lot of people don't think about is you have to worry about that. That there's things that can happen, and like I said, you get the hot spots, and then things can happen because of those hot spots. You can get infections, you can get other things that make it even prolong how long it's going to be till you can wear it. So and like I said, I think that's what makes me so proud. And so, I mean, just they think it's amazing what you do because it's not as easy as a lot of people think.
Right, that's why I wanted to write about it, even just since cancer, I had wanted to write about it because there are so many things that, you just don't think about it until you go through it, um, and I wanted, not only for people that hopefully, I pray will never have to go through things like that, just to be able to get a better understanding of what people with amputations or, cancer diagnosis go through, but also for the people that have gone through it or may end up going through it or are just starting to go through it, um, to give them a heads up of, yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that, oh, it was fine. It was all super easy. It sucked and it was terrible. And there were a lot of things I wish I could change. But at the same time, like you said, giving a story of hope that's like, but you can get through it.
Hmm.
You will learn stuff from it. You will learn things about yourself that you could have never learned without the hardship, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel and there's hope.
Yeah. And I think that's the best message there. I think there's just like we said, there's too many doctors that are immediately just like, nope, you're screwed.
Yep.
And they don't want to. I don't know if it's because they're afraid to give them hope or whatever, but yes, I'm one of those ones. tell me what's worst case scenario?
Hmm.
Okay, that sucks, but I can still
Is
do
it?
this. What's that?
I said, is it possible?
Yeah, is it possible? Is there a chance?
Yeah.
You're telling me this is never going to happen again, but you're telling me that because that's worst case, right? Is it possible?
Hmm.
You know,
And a lot of it is just that self advocacy, um, just learning how to speak up because a lot of times I feel like doctors do get this thing where it's like, well, we have all the information, so you just got to listen to us and trust us. And I'm like,
yeah,
I don't do that anymore. I want to know, like, I want the answers to the questions. I want to know everything. I'll go get a second opinion without a second thought because, that
yeah,
doctor might have information that you don't have.
yeah. And they call it a practice for a reason.
Hmm.
And it's one of those things. There's still so many questions they have about the human body and everything like that, where it's like, oh yeah, this isn't gonna, but it might. It's possible. Has it happened before? There's medical anomalies. You never know. You
Yeah.
know, you just don't. And that's one thing. Like with my foot, I never had to have surgery, but they told me because of the soft tissue damage, I was gonna have major issues because the bones are still bent. They're still like crooked. They
Yeah.
never fixed them because they're like going in to do the surgery is gonna do more damage than just letting them heal as they are. Like, okay, whatever. So my foot's half an inch wider and like half an inch shorter than it used to be.
Hmm.
So, but I'm like, okay, cool. But like I said, they said that you'll never run again. I did. I had to change. I had to adjust, which is what happens. And I think that's what a lot of people, it's like the way they should say it, you're never going to do this the way you did before.
Hmm.
You may be able to do it again, but there's going to be a lot of adjustment. And you're like, okay, cool. So there's hope. Let me have some hope. Don't take it away. And I think
Right.
that's horrible. I think they really need to. And that's what I love about your story and your book. It gives that hope of like, hey, this sucks, but it isn't the end.
Right. There is hope, and being adaptive, it's something I had never heard of until I was adaptive.
Yeah.
And I realized, oh, that's what that means because I think, and even in a lot of people's minds when they get hit with this kind of, life-changing diagnosis or whatever it is, they're thinking have to get back to completely normal. Um I've said it in my book. I'm not a fan of the term new normal, and it's because every time I say new normal, it just does it's just a new reality,
Yeah.
whatever happens, but, there are things and I think Spartan racing is a great analogy for the whole thing because it's like, I'm back on this course and I have to figure out how in the world how to climb up a cargo net because I can't feel my foot. It's not that I could never get up the cargo net again. I just have to be looking down the entire time to make sure that I'm not sticking my foot through the hole and, falling all over myself. But there are ways to adapt even to regular life things. And I wish that was something that was talked about more, not just about let's get you back where you can kind of sort of function, but
Yeah.
let's help teach you how to do the things you want to do.
And I think that's what they don't do enough. I think there needs to be more of that. And that's what I love like about More Heart Than Scars and a lot of organizations like that. They're like, yes, you're never going to do this the same again, but we're still going to do it. We're just going to do it in a new way. And I love your phrase, the new reality, because I've always hated that too, the new normal. What's normal?
Right. Was it ever really normal in the first
Yeah.
place?
So, but the new reality is, I like that idea. It's just a new way of looking at it. Like I said, with my foot, I had to learn how to do everything completely different, how to run differently, because my foot, I don't get push off with that foot,
Mhm.
but I just found a new way to do it, you know.
Yep.
And like you said, even running, people run without feet. So if I don't get push off with it, I'm sure I can find a way to run. It's just not going to be the way I did it before.
Right. It might not be ideal, but you can
No,
figure it out.
no, you can figure it out.
I do wish that were a thing, because there are so many people. I think of the amount of people that are out there that don't know about More Heart Than Scars or about any of these organizations or that haven't encountered an adaptive athlete or someone that can tell them it's possible, who they have all these hopes and dreams and things they want to do, but no one's ever told them that they could.
Yeah.
And that can make the biggest difference in the world is just having that one person tell you that you can.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's it. I mean, I've been on those races where we've done it with someone, taking someone with it in Houston, right here in Houston. We did the Houston race with Ansley's Angels, and it was with some people that had a cerebral palsy who never thought they would be able to do something like this. And the smiles on their face
Mm-hmm.
while they were doing this was just amazing. I think my favorite part was one of the guys after he finished, and Don's gonna be mad at me for swearing on the show, but I don't care. But he literally, I mean, he was confined to a wheelchair his entire life, all that, and we got him all the way through a Spartan race, and he literally yells out, "I'm a badass motherfucker," and we're all like, "Yes, you are.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, you are." And that was just to me was amazing because, like you said, it's the new reality or your reality. You know, it's not the normal. Hey, you're still gonna do Spartan races, normal Spartan races, normal.
Right.
What is that? We all do different anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You just do it in your reality.
Exactly. And I
I
think
like that.
saying reality shifts it away from being stuck on this idea of normal. Because if I were sticking myself to the idea of normal, I would be thinking like, I can get up out of this chair and walk across the room. That's not I'm not wearing my leg right now. That's not the case. I will trip and fall. Which is the funniest thing when I do forget that there's not a leg there. It happens more often than you'd think, um but just saying new reality, it gets me away from thinking that there has to be some kind of normal
Yeah.
because there is no normal with this.
Well, I think what it is because as we were growing up, I mean, I don't know about you, I think you're younger than me, but growing up, being normal was what we all strived for.
Mhm.
Not me, I've always been the oddball, but but that's the thing. It's like everybody normal was good.
Right, it was
Not
bad
normal.
if you were not the
Yes.
normal people.
Bad was the not normal. Oh, you're not normal. That's bad. And I think that's where like we see it is like the new normal. We're not quite good anymore because we're the new normal, and everything like that. So that's why I like your new reality. There's no good or bad in reality. It just is.
It just is. Yeah, I grew up coming through high school, of course, before all of this happened. I could see the shift start happening where it was between that, some people were they just wanted to be normal and that was
Hmm.
normal was good. And then there were people like me that were like, it just doesn't feel why do I want to be normal like everybody else?
Yeah.
Why don't I just want to be, whatever I become? And and then of course throughout all of this realizing that normal is not exactly, it can be good.
Can be.
You can also just be your own person and, do not normal things and there's value to that too.
Yeah. And I think that's just one of the things with our reality. People are just so quick to label everything.
Mhm.
Like you're part of this group or you're part of that group and you're part of this group. And I'm like, I'm just me.
Mhm.
That's it.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah, that's pretty much my attitude. It's been my attitude for a couple of years now. It's pretty much I tried for years to fit into these boxes, and
Mhm.
then after a while, I'm like, this is who I am. You don't like it, I don't care.
Right.
You know, and I think you kind of have to take that attitude, and I think that's kind of thing with you is you can that's kind of your attitude is pay because they're like, hey, this is what your new normal is. This is your new everything. You're like, nope,
Mm-mm.
that's not my new reality.
Right.
This is my reality.
The reality is what I'm going to create for myself.
Yep.
So, and the thing is, I don't ever want it to be misconceived that this is like some triumphant story where everything went well. But, it getting to the new reality came with the struggles and the failures and the, not being able to do things and learning how to do things and still having things that I, as much as it grates my nerves, have to ask for help with. And
Hmm.
that's little Miss Independent doesn't like that, but she's getting used to it. Um, but it's not that's one of the things I tell people when I'm telling them about my story because of course all of the good things always come out. All of the, well, you're walking now and you're running races. It wasn't always like that. There were the struggles and everything like that, but we got there eventually.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is, I mean, like I said, I haven't read it yet, but I'm guessing your book has all the struggles in it as well as the triumphs. And I think that's what's gonna make me love this book when I read it, is because I see too many times where people are like, look how great I am. And that's what you see on Facebook and everywhere else. Look at how amazing my life is. And you don't realize like behind them, their entire life is in shambles and on fire.
Mhm.
You know, And that's where people I think miss. They're like, look how perfect that person is and look how perfect their life is. And like for you to go through and like look how, how well she's been able to do all this. And yes, you're in an amazing spot right now, but what did you have to go through to get there?
Right, because it wasn't all, like I said, my story was one of those of if it can go wrong, it will go wrong.
Yeah.
Um, I mentioned having sepsis during cancer. I had sepsis 3 times
Oh,
because, my body just wasn't taking it well. And then when we got to the surgery and they biopsied the tumor that they took out, come to find out, chemo did not work at all. There was 0% necrosis of the tumor. So it's one of those, it was not a pretty, happy story of, oh, she had chemo and then they took it out and everything was great. It was so far from that. And
yeah.
that's,
And I mean, oh,
I mean, that's how the story has to go. And, you know, it makes it what it is.
it does. And I mean, that's one thing is I think most of us have that where we have something like people see what we are, but they don't see what got us here.
Right.
And I think that's what's amazing is like, like I said, reading the book, and I can't wait to like get time to sit down and read it. And understanding the methods and everything that you went through. And I think this would be a great book, like you said, for new people who are about to go through this or just went through it, or it's a possibility they could have to go through it to read this and understand like, hey, there's going to be some rough time. There's going to be some times you're probably going to cry yourself to sleep where you just, do everything. Everything sucks. You just don't want to go anymore. But if you work at it and you go and you have the right mindset, you can come out the other side, you
Mhm.
know, just as good as you were before, just with a little bit, you're just on your way to becoming Darth Vader.
Exactly.
I mean,
And
yeah,
mindset's a huge part of it. I mean, I think a lot of people underestimate the role that a mindset can play in stuff like this.
yeah.
Same as preparing your mind for a big Spartan race.
Hmm.
You gotta and in the same sense, I learned things about my mind in the Spartan race that I couldn't have prepared for before that. And it's the same thing. Like I went through things that um there's nothing in the world that could have prepared me for it mentally or physically. But if you have the right mindset of there is another side to it, it's not always going to be stuck in this, crying myself to sleep. At one point, I just crawled in bed with my mom and said, I need mama tonight, and slept in bed with her because I was like, this is the only way I'm getting through tonight. And, but it's okay to have those things.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely okay. But I mean, you got through that night
Yeah,
and you get through all the other ones. And that's the hardest part, I think, for some people when you're going through a rough time like that and everything just seems like everything's going wrong. Sometimes it is just get through the night.
it seems, I actually struggle with that. It seems like whatever you're going through in the moment is going to be the perpetual, like, this is what my life is for the next
Hmm.
20 years. And I have to tell myself, just take a nap, go to sleep, check it out again in the morning. And most of the time, when I do get to the next morning or get up from the nap, I'm like, okay, I was, things still suck,
Yeah.
but I can handle it.
And it becomes one of those things. I think a lot of times you get that reset and then your brain can go, okay, this sucks right now. But if I do this and this, it'll be a little bit better tomorrow.
Hmm.
And if I do this and this, it'll be a little bit better the next day. And sometimes that's where a lot of people, most of us, me included, we're all looking for that instant gratification. Sometimes you're not going to get that. And
Right,
most of the times, really, in life, you're not going to get that instant gratification. So it is sometimes, you know, you have to look at that. Like, what can I do to make tomorrow just a little bit better?
right. Do it
And
in
then the
little
next day.
steps. Because
Yeah.
I am totally guilty of saying, making my little list and saying, I need to go to bed early and drink more water and eat healthy and work out. And then the next day I wake up and I'm like, I'll drink the water, but that's about
Yeah.
all I have today. But just, baby stepping it and saying, okay, well, tomorrow I'm going to drink more water. And then the day after that, I'm going to try to wake up earlier.
See, I'm horrible because I'll be like, ice is water.
Coffee has
Yeah.
water.
Coffee has water in it. And I'm horrible. That coffee is my biggest. I drink an entire pot every day.
Oh, see, I became a coffee addict when I was starting to write because there was no way I could just sit at a computer for
Yeah.
hours at a time without some kind of, you know, something to zap my brain a little bit.
Yeah, I drink an entire pot every day before I go to work. My wife gets up right before I do. like while I'm getting ready, because she works from home, and she'll go start a pot of coffee. I'll come in, I dump my protein shake into a thermos and a coffee cup, and then pour the coffee in. That's how I drink my protein shake. It's like my sweetener is my protein shake. Pour
That's
her
awesome.
1 cup, and then pour the rest of the whole pot into between my thermos and my coffee cup and go to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I pretty much drink an entire pot every day. Yeah.
Hey, we got to do what we got to do.
Oh yeah, we do. Like I said, right now I'm working like 6 10s. So my brain is not functioning.
I don't blame you for that, but thank you for taking time to do this.
Oh yeah, this has been an amazing talk. I'll be honest. I mean, I've been a little bit mentally down, I think, with just all the work and stress and everything. And talking to you has actually brought me up. So it's reminded me that it's a tough time right now. There's a little bit of darkness in my brain, but there's light in the other end. So,
Mhm. Well,
one of my favorite sayings has always been always forward. Always forward. So, all right. Well, we've definitely crossed the hour that Dawn likes me to stay at, but so this has been amazing talking to you.
thank you so much.
I'm gonna tell you right now that I'm betting money that after I'm done reading this, I'm gonna want to do this again.
I am so okay with that. That would be awesome.
So we can have a talk actually, after I've read the book, because now I really want to read it. So after I read it, I'm gonna reach back out to you, or Dawn will, one of us will, and we're gonna have to do this again because this is amazing. And then I'm gonna have to find a way that we can race together.
Absolutely.
Right on.
Gotta do those things.
All right. Well, it was very nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too.
We'll talk again soon.
All right. Talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook, like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.